Chairman of Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee, Frank Domprey, has defended President Akufo-Addo's handling of migrant crisis for involving some Ghanaians. He was reacting to criticism by minority spokesperson in Foreign Affairs Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa that the president has not done enough to help some 29 Ghanaians stranded in Spain.
So all of them are in these blue Red Cross provided T-shirts, and some had to be taken to hospitals. There are 7 pregnant women. 1 Ghanaian is included.
Ghanaian
yeah, pregnant Ghanaian woman. And then there were 112 minors below the age of 17. Can you believe that? You know, really, really horrendous. And they told me that the route is through Techiman to Niger, and then Niger to Libya. And according to them, the first round of deaths occurred between Niger and Libya, the Sahara Desert. Very harsh weather conditions. It's the hottest place anywhere in the world.
But Mr. Domprey insists the NPP government has a better track record in helping Ghanaians stranded abroad.
More treatment to Ghanaians in Libya, it didn't start within this era. I agree with him that we need to do more. But you see, when he's criticizing, he should be measured in his criticism. Because there are times we never saw anything like that. Ghanaians died in Gambia. What did we see? Ghanaians died in Libya. What did we see? This time, they've been airlifted and brought back home. I think that beyond that, we should look at a broader picture. Well, these overly politicizing issues, especially matters that concern our image as a country, the minority should be a bit measured in their criticism. I'm not saying they shouldn't criticize, and I have accepted that we need to do more, but we need to know where we are coming from. I don't think that we have to be personalizing this thing and putting it at the doorstep of the presidency. We have a Minister for Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration. The minister has been working for some time. If there are issues and there are concerns, we think that the minister has not been up to task. He, as a ranking member, has all the rights. File questions, make statements. Our orders even allows him to raise this as a big public matter to be raised. The president is a human being. Yes, he's commander-in-chief of the Ghana Armed Forces. We agree, but a lot of the things about diplomacy we talk about, you can't just come out and make sweeping statements. A lot of talking, a lot of negotiations is being done backdoor. And he knows that diplomacy, you at best not, issuing and getting aggressive and issuing statements.
Former President John Agyekum Kufuor has backed the minority's calls on the National Identification Authority to include voters' ID cards in requirements for the registration of the Ghana card. The NIA has come under several attacks, especially from the minority NDC, over the exemption of the voter ID card as registration requirements, costs involved, and legalities surrounding the Ghana card registration. Other civil society organizations and concerned citizens have taken the NIA to court over the matter. Speaking in an interview Tuesday after receiving his Ghana card, former President Kufuor stressed that the NIA must put measures in place to allow the use of voter IDs as part of the registration requirements.
I don't know if it's going to be like that everywhere throughout the country for all the citizens of our country. It's been a rigorous exercise for the past almost 2 hours, which means it will take a lot of time. But when you're going to do it for about 30 million people, my wish is that they would step up and do everything within minutes rather than hours. Document that would help identify a citizen as a citizen with the sovereign authority residing in him or her. So if your voter's ID is not incorporated in this, then when it comes to citizens going to make a government, where would you be? How would you say, truly, you also have the Kokoromoti power to make a government? So voters' ID should be part of it.
Former President Kufuor, however, urged the minority and all those boycotting the exercise to first get their names in the National Identification Database and protest later.
I would urge all Ghanaians whether they see some wrong, even with the exercise, to go and put their names down. It will be their right to opt out. It's about votes, and you don't want to vote in the future. You can stay at home. Nobody would force you. But if you deny yourself from being registered today, a time may come when you would queue to vote, and the presiding officer will just look you in the face, look at his register, and tell you, you are not here, you are not entitled to vote. It would be there, you'd find what you've thrown away. Because we are talking of the entitlements of the citizen of Ghana through this exercise. So you go register as Ghanaian. If you think this exercise is defective, you just get your name there. Later on, you can register your protests, and it's a technology. I'm sure there will be some way to even improve upon the system we are launching today. But if you do not get in there today, come 2 years and the nation lines up to go and vote, you go and they will be told you are not on the register. What would you do to that?
Agriculture Minister Dr. Owusu Afriyie-Koto says measures have been put in place to ensure that the Southern Fall Army worm does not find its way into the country. The worms have affected large swathes of farmlands in countries including Nigeria and Benin. Taking his turn at the Meet the Press series, Dr. Afriyie said his ministry will deal with the pest in the event that it spreads to Ghana. Therefore, Evans Chinri reports.
Afriyie says although 14,000 metric tons of crops have so far been destroyed by fall army worms, it's been brought under control with the help of the United Nations and the USAID. He says there's now enough capacity to deal with any invasion.
This year, so we had to form very quickly a national task force, not only of our local experts, but also international experts, United Nations, USAID and others, bring them all together, task them to see what they can do for us. They advised us, we put on all the insecticides and so on, and we're able to bring it under control to the extent that nearly a quarter of a million hectares of maize was affected. But because of the drastic efforts that we put in, we're able to save all of it except 14,000 metric tons, which was destroyed by the fall army worm. But this year, I can assure you, they won't even get 1,000, not even 1,000. They won't, because we have been able to sensitize the farmers, the general public, form gangs and spraying gangs, train our own staff, gone on the community radios and so on. A lot of effort. I didn't dismantle the task force that I put together. They are still working and working very hard to ensure that what happened last year doesn't happen.
Dr. Owusu Afriyie further mentioned that his ministry is collaborating with the Roads and Transport Ministry and the Education Ministry to ensure that storage facilities and transport services for food crops are available at all times.
All the feeder roads in this country which are due for rehabilitation or new construction or whatever, the Ministry of Roads and Highways have to refer them to me, for me to send them to my officers in the field to confirm that indeed these feeder roads are leading to the major food producing areas. And that kind of level of collaboration has never been done before. We are working very, very closely. So if I raise a red flag, it means that it won't be done. There's more priority elsewhere, and we have to redirect those resources there. So between the building the warehouses and the feeder road collaboration, we are putting down for the first time solid marketing infrastructure for our food. That is what it means. That we have access to the producing areas, that we have storage facilities for the surpluses that are going to be collected. And not only that, we are also collaborating with the Ministry of Education so that a free education where government has to provide food for these beneficiaries. We are working with the ministry, so we are taking food from our buffer stock warehouses to feed the students, so that, in other words, to support the farmers at the farm gate through government procurement.
He says farmers will also be provided with the necessary tools to ensure that they are comfortable working in the country.
We are very focused on ensuring that we diagnostically put our eyes on the ball, that productivity is something amongst the farmers that we are going to increase. Because productivity in Ghana, Ghanaian agriculture is one of the lowest in the world, even by West African standard. I've mentioned cocoa. I can mention all kinds of crops, the yields we are getting our rice, we are getting our maize and all that. So we are very, very determined as a government to make sure that the 4 years that the Ghanaian constitution gives us, we will be able to transform permanently. It's not a question of trying to make an improvement and then going back. That there will be a permanent change in the structure of the agriculture economy, and through that, a permanent change in the economy of Ghana to make the people of Ghana better.
Calm has returned to Bukom and other parts of Gamashi and the Greater Accra region after traditional authorities there imposed restrictions on movement of residents, which triggered a state of confusion and tension. While residents there want government to step in to avert further tension that may lead to violence. The traditional authorities claim they had to perform the rites to cleanse the community following the death of a young man during clashes between two clans in the community earlier this month. Some residents spoke with Joy News, and we'll be bringing you that a lot later. Right now, we're taking a break here on Joy News Prime. There's more news ahead. Do stay tuned. Now return to earlier story where calm has returned to Bukom and other parts of Gamashi here in the Greater Accra region after traditional authorities there imposed restrictions on the movement of residents, which triggered a state of confusion and tension. The residents there say they want government to intervene and avert further tension that may lead to violence. The traditional authorities claim they had to intervene to perform some rites to cleanse the community following the death of a young man during clashes between two clans earlier this month. Some residents spoke with Joy News.
Going on is that about 2 weeks ago, an incident transpired here. There was a clash between the Bese youth, which came to attack the Koli Ulomo youth. And what happened was that the attack resulted in the gunshot, resulting in the murder of one Tiflos Tetekwe. The deceased is currently at the morgue. Autopsy has been done. And then after the incident, we witnessed the moving of a vehicle with a loudspeaker on top, announcing a curfew. Then they decide to be chasing people on the streets. People were running helter-skelter from their workplace to their homes. Okay, actually, that was 3 days today. We were here when we had an information that they were going around announcing that the following day, that is tomorrow, that was yesterday, yeah. We are supposed to go on bed, that is 6 p.m. So we were like, what is the issue and what is it about? But we were later being told that they said they want to do some cleansing in the town. And we were asking ourselves that cleansing concerning what? But those who have a little idea of it said it was due to the crash that happened, that was on the 8th of June this month. Yeah, they off their light and then everybody went in.
Numo Akwa Mensah III is Wulomo in the Gas State. He tells Joy News that rites were necessary to prepare towards the Homowo celebrations.
There had never been a curfew within the Gas State just for Homowo celebration. But it's a traditional rituals that we have to perform and make sure that we cleanse the whole state due to one or two things that happened. We don't want to enter into the Homowo festivities with the bloodshed and these taboos that has before the Gas during the ban on drumming. So there was nothing like curfew. Since it is a traditional and a spiritual activity, it is not of good behavior if we allow the public to witness or to see what will be done, because we want to maintain the sanctity of the custom.
He explained why the police was not informed.
As the Homowo festival is quite near, we've started the Homowo festivities by the ban on drumming, lifting of the ban on drumming and noise making. Without all these festivities and traditions and customs, there is nothing like the Ghana State. because all these things are what lets other people see who the gangs are. So I will entreat everybody to get themselves involved in this year's Homo. I will also advise all the tenants and then the other migrants to also assist us to have a very united, peaceful, and then a very good celebrated Homo this year.
Accra Region Police Commander DCOP George Alex Benson says some arrests have been made and the suspects will soon be arraigned before court.
Let's speak to the Greater Accra Regional Police Commander DCOP George Alexander Mensah. Thank you, sir, for your time here on Newsnight. So how are you handling this situation?
There's no more chaos at the place. The incident happened yesterday and we've taken care of that.
We've had residents who say, well, they fear that they need some permanent, a bit more, some permanent dialogue or some form of a police presence there just to reassure them. Is this something you're going to take into consideration going forward?
Oh, yes, the police are already there. The police are not going to disengage until we find lasting peace at the Bushi area.
Are we going to see people dealt with according to the law for this? Because we heard people use words like curfew, imposing restrictions on people, forcefully asking people to put off their lives and not move about. That is reserved for Parliament and the President and the Executive. Is the police going to take this, take the action against people who may be identified behind this?
Yes, of course. Yesterday we arrested about 15 people who were engaged in that imposition of illegal curfew. We've taken their statements, we are yet to put them before court. And if you find anybody behind that move that person to, will have to face the law. Because as you rightly said, no individual can impose a curfew on anybody without recourse to the procedure or the law.
I'm grateful. That is a Greater Accra.
We're taking a break here on Joy News Prime, but still ahead in the bulletin, Parliament's Privileges Committee, after a pre-hearing session on Tuesday, has set July 3 for the public hearing into claims that Asin Central MP Kennedy Agyapong insulted the House.
If they invite me, I'll show you, I'll go. I have never insulted Parliament. I didn't insult Parliament.
Stay tuned, we'll be back with business.
Good evening to you and welcome to Business. CEO of the Vodafone Ghana, Yolanda Cuba, has set some conditions for a possible listing on the Ghana Stock Exchange. She, however, refused to give any timelines for the company to list on the Bourse. In an interview with Joy Business, Yolanda Cuba says Vodafone Ghana is committed towards such a move.
The whole thing around listing is hinged on us actually restructuring our balance sheet and also moving away from the negative equity, which is one of the requirements for before you can list. Once we actually have jumped that hurdle, we actually can list at any time that is appropriate for both our shareholders. And our shareholders today, 30% government and 70% Vodafone PLC.
Let's look at a situation where all other things being equal, the economists would say that you reached an agreement with government by the close of this year. What are the time lag, not dates, that you would take to do all these regulatory requirements, get clearance from PLC and see that, okay, from 2020, that option is available to us?
So I can't give you that because negative equity will take time to actually clear out because it's dependent on the profits of the company to actually clear out what we call negative equity on the balance sheet of the company. And as I said, that's one of the listing requirements in Ghana. And also in terms of what I mentioned around the balance sheet restructure with government has actually shown incredible commitment towards the sustainability of Vodafone Ghana by actually giving us already a commitment around restructuring our balance sheet. So we've made progress, and I'm grateful for the progress that we've made. And basically right now we're trying to iron out a few issues before we can implement the restructuring. So best case scenario on the restructuring, if I had my way, it would be done by the end of this year. And then the only thing that we'd be dealing with is the negative equity. And then when the shareholders decide when they want to do it, it's not the call of management about when to
So can I say that the government holds the keys in this particular case, so might hold the final call? And
there are two shareholders.
There are two shareholders.
There are two shareholders. Vodafone PLC and government have to agree to a listing.
It appears the government might be stalling the process and making the process.
Not at all. Not at all.
You're making progress on that one.
We're making progress, significant progress, because they've actually given us already an undertaking a few months ago already around the restructuring of the balance sheet. So that's really positive.
Chief Executive of the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, Yofi Grant, has entreated government to address challenges facing the country's agricultural land tenure system. He revealed that the challenges with the system continue to remain an obstacle for potential investors in the agricultural sector. Yofi Grant was speaking at the GIPC second quarter CEO breakfast meeting in Accra.
The meeting hosted stakeholders in the agricultural sector who deliberated on issues in the financing of the agricultural sector. One of the key areas addressed was the need for more investment in the agri sector as one of the major contributors to the country's GDP. Speaking later in an interview, CEO of the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, Yofi Grant, called for a lasting solution to the problem in the land tenure system as it posed as a threat to potential foreign investors.
We do have some major investors. I was just even speaking to the Turkish ambassador, where there's a major Turkish company who are already here looking to do groundnuts in Ghana and other crops in the Volta region. I know there's one of the biggest banana farms or plantations, which could possibly be the single largest banana plantation in the world, is in the Volta region. It's an investment from Kuwait. And so there are quite a number of them coming and asking what opportunities are there. The biggest stumbling block is land tenure and availability of land and access to land for farming. It's not even for investors outside, even for investors in Ghana. Land is an issue. And so we need to work hard to solve that.
He added that for agriculture to be attractive to the youth, more reforms should be encouraged.
We do have some major investors. I was just even speaking to the Turkish ambassador, where there's a major Turkish company who are already here looking to do groundnuts in Ghana and other crops in the Volta region. I know there's one of the biggest banana farms or plantations, which could possibly be the single largest banana plantation in the world, is in the Volta region. It's an investment from Kuwait. And so there are quite a number of them coming and asking what opportunities are there. The biggest stumbling block is land tenure and availability of land and access to land for farming. It's not even for investors outside, even for investors in Ghana. Land is an issue. And so we need to work hard to solve that.
The theme for the second quarter meeting was innovative financing for commercial agriculture.
Managers of the Sankofa oil field on Tuesday began some test runs on the machines to be utilized for gas production. Joy Business understands the exercise is more of testing the onshore gas infrastructure facility located at Sansure in the western region for onward supply to some power producers. Sources say ENI is hopeful of starting full transfer of gas from its FPSO from next month. Executive Director of the Africa Center for Energy Policy, Ben Boache, says excess gas must lower cost of power production and boost industrial growth. He's also urging government to negotiate for lower gas prices to make the sector more competitive.
Gas is important fuel, particularly for power generation. And in Ghana, we're increasingly moving away from hydro to thermal. And once you have gas, then it reduces the cost of generating power. What we are not sure is, whether government will be able to immediately finalize, its negotiation to bring the gas price down, because our gas prices, as we know, are pretty high, almost at the same rate as oil, so that doesn't give us that advantage, of benefiting more from the gas. We do know that government is engaging the companies to bring down the cost of gas so that can be passed through the power sector, because much of our gas is used for power generation. And we need more gas. We're told that LNG is also going to come in to augment our local production of gas. So these are things we could look up to for in 2018 to ensure that there is a cheaper gas that will translate into cheaper electricity to spur industrial growth.
June 27 marks the United Nations Day for Micro, Small and Medium-Scale Enterprises, MSMEs. The UN set aside this day to recognize the important contributions they make to the global economy. SMEs make up to 92% of businesses in Africa, contributing about 61% to employment in Ghana and about 70% of Ghana's GDP. Despite this, however, they still face a critical challenge of financing, even though there are many financial institutions in the country. Philip Namfuri gives us some perspectives and possible solutions for SMEs growth.
Now let me give you a snapshot of the banking landscape. There are 34 commercial banks in the country, 37 savings and loans institutions, 140 rural and community banks in the countries, and 269 microfinance institutions in the country. That brings a total of 504 institutions, 504 financial institutions, and yet they face problems when accessing financing. Is it the fault of the financiers, that's the institutions, or is it the fault of the MSME owners? Now we ask ourselves, how then can we improve their access to finance? And I think it's about time we shift our focus from borrowing or from debt financing to other options such as equity financing, where MSMEs can look at roping in other investors or seeking or sourcing funds from well-wishers, what we call angel investors, who then give them free money, in quotes, to support the growth of their business. For example, the Ghana Stock Exchange's Ghana Alternative Exchange, the GAX, provides growth opportunities or capital for companies who are ready and willing to demonstrate a capacity to grow. So we should look at other options and stop the focus on debt financing, which is borrowing from banks and other institutions. We should start exploring other options such as equity, which means using capital, someone else's capital. It may be your own capital, it may be a friend's capital to support your business. Let's change our mindset that a business is only for you. That's the bane of MSMEs in the country, or one of their problems. The business is not only for you, it's for all of us. You are serving us and we are serving you. So change the mindset about only borrowing from banks and look at equity financing also.
And that wraps up business for tonight. Many thanks for your company. My name is Emmanuel Abuaji. We are for the small business on our website, myjournline.com/business. Have a good evening.
Women's Privileges Committee has set July 3 for the public hearing into allegations that Sin Central MP Kennedy Agyapong has impugned the reputation of the House. The committee came to the conclusion after pre-hearing sitting Tuesday, attended by Minority Chief Whip Muntaka Mubarak. The Minority Chief Whip had accused his colleague from Sin Central of calling Parliament useless for electing Osei Mensah Bonsu as its leader. Joseph Opoku-Gakpo has more.
The Privileges Committee, chaired by Joseph Osei, met for a little over an hour. Kennedy Agyapong was expected to appear, but he didn't. Muntaka Mubarak was in there. It was a closed sitting. The indication is that he was given the opportunity to make a case for which Kennedy Agyapong should be investigated for alleged contemptuous comments. And we gather that the committee came to a conclusion that there is a basis to investigate him for alleged contemptuous comments. Ras Mubarak is the MP for Kumbungu and a friend of the committee. He sat through those closed-door sessions.
The committee came to a conclusion that indeed the MP's Code of Conduct, if you look at Section 4(9) of the Code of Conduct of Members of Parliament, it was breached. And the Standing Orders of Parliament and the Constitution was also breached. I think Article 122 was breached. You know, so it was important to invite the Honorable Muntaka to appear on the 3rd of July and also invite the Honorable Kennedy Agyapong to appear on the 3rd of July so that both parties will be given a fair hearing in the spirit of natural justice.
After the sitting, members of the committee merged. Muntaka Mubarak, the Aswansi MP who made the allegation, says he thinks he made a very good case for which Kennedy Agyapong should face sanctions from Parliament.
I appeared before the committee as a witness, and I have to substantiate all that I have said, and I have to identify the documents and all what I've presented to them. They looked at it, and fortunately, because we had a video, it has to be played so that everybody here what is in it. I have done my part. That is what I have to do. They asked me questions, I've answered all the questions, I'm done. It's for the committee to determine that what I put before them and what they themselves have seen amount what I propose on the floor being contemptuous. And it is my favorite hope that looking at the tape and listening to its content, looking at the conduct of our own colleague, I want to believe that the committee will come to that determination and probably open up the public discussions.
Vice Chairman of the Privileges Committee, Andrew Ejapa Mesa, says the next steps on what would happen going forward will soon be made known to members of the public.
If an invitation is extended to him to appear, I'm sure that he would, because my understanding is that no invitation was extended to him to appear today.
The Privileges Committee has set July 3 as the next date on which they will be meeting, and at that particular session, it's expected that it would be an open one during which Muntaka Mubarak would make his claims and Kennedy Agyapong will be given the opportunity to cross-examine him for a final determination on what should happen as far as these allegations are concerned. From Parliament House in Accra, my name is Joseph Opoku-Gakpo.
The Asin Central MP Irvine says he's done nothing wrong and has no difficulty appearing before the Privileges Committee.
They've invited Honorable Muntaka to come with evidence that I insulted Parliament, but the media made a mistake and lumped us together. But if they invite me, I'll assure you, I'll go.
Earlier you said that you didn't do anything wrong. Do you still stand by that?
Yeah, I have never insulted Parliament. I didn't insult Parliament. That's why I call him dumb. He consumes information and he doesn't digest.
So prior to this, what was your relationship with?
He's not my friend.
Interview was recorded earlier in the day, and the Asin Central MP did not appear before the committee. My colleague Bernice Abubedu, who spoke with him, chronicled some of the legislator's controversial comments and asked if he would ever consider suggestions for him to tone down his language.
Put my life on the line and see who will go to ahead if I'm lying.
You may want to refer to him as one who is no respecter of persons. The MPP's Asin Central MP Kennedy Agyapong is well known for his daring nature, questioning some members and projects of the opposition NDC and his own party.
He raises two critical points. Delta Force and...
Delta Force! I dare everybody in this country to try any of these boys. And you will see, I will personally lead demonstration against MPP.
A population of 30 million,
no, oil there.
1.2 billion. I brought Indians. They were not even asking for $50 million.
What?
So why are you telling me 1.2 billion? Are you mad?
Not only does he question some of his party's policies, he always seems to have some evidence against someone. His recent claims were against investigator Anas Arimeyao Anas.
He's not as smart as you think, but he's just diabolic. I have evidence, he himself, saying that he took $100,000.
He's also fond of taking swipes at anyone. He recently took on Minority Chief Whip Muntaka Mubarak for saying that he, Kennedy Agyapong, had called Parliament useless.
I didn't insult Parliament. That's why I call him dumb. He consumes information and he doesn't digest.
The legislator, who is also chairman of Parliament's Communications Committee, doesn't shy away from flaunting his wealth.
Honorable doesn't give me money. 11,000 cedis is my salary. And my chop money is more than that.
Anas has taken you to court.
Oh, I went there myself to pick the rate. But I'm ready for him. Look, I'm not a cheap ball that a guy can play. He's scaring everybody. No way, not Kennedy Agyapong.
Many, however, consider the manner in which he does these things insulting and uncharacteristic of an MP. So would he ever consider suggestions for him to tone down his language?
I don't have a problem. I take their suggestions. And sometimes, give you an example. If Anas will pay a Fuad Schwarzenegger to come and insult me, and I have the Facebook conversation between them, I have it. When I'm responding, you say that I have to tone down. Look at the insults a Fuad Schwarzenegger has rained on me, but everybody is preventing me not to speak.
A section of the public and some of his own colleagues may dislike his comment, but others don't care so much since they benefit from his benevolence. Benes Abubeidu for Joy News.
Minority Member of Parliament Ras Mubarak has filed a motion seeking an investigation of the controversial Kelny GVG deal. The Communications Minister Eslo appeared before the House earlier this month to respond to questions on the issue. But Ras Mubarak, who says he has the blessing of the minority to push through the motion, says she failed to fully address the issues raised. Therefore, the need for a committee of the House to probe the matter. He is hoping to move the motion on the floor in the next few days for a debate.
I'm seeking for the House to instruct the Minister for Communications to appear before the Committee on Communications to answer questions on the award of the contract to Kelny GVG. As we may be aware, the Minister had appeared before Parliament in a form of a statement, but clearly there are still residual issues. Ghanaians have raised issues about privacy protection. You know, the Minister would have to come and satisfy the committee that indeed there would not be the intrusion of the privacy of Ghanaians as far as this arrangement is concerned. And then on the award of contract generally, because the Minister indicated when she appeared that it was done through restricted tendering. We would want to see documents to that effect. And we would want to satisfy ourselves that it indeed went through the necessary processes. Again, there are questions about the costs of the contract. There are questions about the shareholding percentage of Kelny and GVG. And there are also rumors out there that indeed the hand of GVG was forced into mergering with Kelny. As you may be aware, Kelny is a local partner and GVG is the international partner. I mean, in order that all of these would be settled, the Minister would have an opportunity at the committee level to satisfy us that whether the rumors we are hearing are indeed true or not. And I'm sure that it would provide the ministry itself an opportunity to bring a closure to the matter. But there are
Meanwhile, Kelny GVG, the company contracted to assure revenue by the country's telecom operators for government, is said to have finally succeeded in connecting 4 telcos to its common platform. Chief Executive Officer of Vodafone Ghana, Yolanda Cuba, who disclosed this, however, says no monitoring has taken place so far because of the 2 suits against the contract. The 2 parties are seeking to stop government from implementing the revenue assurance contract for real-time call traffic monitoring, citing a breach of the data protection laws, among others. The telcos had earlier this month defied a June 11 deadline by the Communications Minister for them to allow Kelny GVG to connect. Yolanda Cuba, however, told journalists on Tuesday Vodafone Ghana and the 3 other telcos eventually backed down following an understanding reached with the sector ministry.
Today, the regulator has every right to come into our premises and connect whatever equipment they have. Like, for example, they did the quality of service, and they needed to come into our premises and connect. What we have agreed with the regulator is that no traffic will pass through the platform until such time that all the issues, the legal issues, have been ironed out. That is our position as Vodafone and definitely as the telco industry. So we have not implemented the common platform as required by the law today. We have not implemented. Because remember, the implementation means that they are able to actively monitor real-time information on call records. And that today, no one can do that.
According to her, the filter box option the Ministry of Communications proposed to further address the telco's privacy concerns does not completely solve the problem.
Actually, in the design, there was no filter. Now there is a filter that actually gets us a little bit more confident in terms of connecting. The truth is, there is no solution, I think, as a telco whenever I take out the information of customers outside my system, that would ever make me feel like I'm 100% confident. I don't want to lie to you, except if it's totally anonymized, totally randomized, totally whatever. There is no system in the world that I would say I'll say it's 100%. You know, today I know how we deal with some of those concerns within our business, and we've got, you know, we've got GDPR actually looking at us from Europe. So we have to comply with a lot of that regulation as well. So when I look at what we do as a system globally, we actually do that to protect all customers on the same basis. So there isn't a Ghana standard. You know, so for us, that's why I'm saying that, you know, at the end of the day, 90-odd% comfortable, yes. As soon as I give out customer data, I sleep less comfortable.
The Electoral Commission will soon start processes to conduct referendum in the Northern, Western, Brong-Ahafo and the Volta regions on the proposed creation of new regions. The referendum is to decide on the carving out of the Northern region, Savannah North, Oti from the Volta region, Brong East from the Brong-Ahafo region and Western North from the Western region. The Presidential Commission on the creation of the new regions recommended that marginalization, extreme poverty and low-level development witnessed during their tour makes a strong case for the proponents. The only outstanding issue is how and where the referendum would take place. Chairman of the Presidential Commission, retired Supreme Court Judge Justice Stephen Brobe, says all interest groups were satisfied before arriving at the recommendations.
We are convinced that we have received all shades of opinion from as wide a cross-section of the Ghanaian populace as is possibly under these circumstances. Mr. President, the culmination of all these steps taken by the Commission is the report that we are here to submit to you today. Our report is entitled, quote, Equitable Distribution of National Resources for the Balanced Development, unquote. I repeat, equitable distribution of national resources for balanced development, unquote. This title encapsulates the aspirations of the people of the areas from which the petitions emanated. As a matter of fact, this must be the desire of every citizen of Ghana who chooses not to be a spectator.
Accepting the report of the Commission, President Akufo-Addo said the decision to create the region was a result of several petitions received during his tour of the country before the 2016 elections. He is hopeful the successful creation of the regions will speed up development across the country.
It is clear that the process has been demand-driven and reflective of the will of the people, as the Constitution so intends. It has been a truly national exercise. The report submitted by the Commission indicates that there is indeed a need and substantial demand for the creation of new regions in the various areas that were the subject of its inquiry. The Commission has recommended the creation of the following new regions: Western North, Bono East, Ahafo, Savannah, Northeast, and Oti. The Commission has thus further recommended that the Electoral Commission hold referenda in these new proposed regions to determine whether the constitutional thresholds for the creation of new regions will be met by the vote of the people affected. It has also specified the issues that the referenda will resolve. Let me reiterate that at least 50% of the persons entitled to vote must vote in each of the different referenda, and of the votes cast, at least 80% must be cast in favor of the creation of a region for the demand to succeed. The Constitution insists that the process and outcome must be guided by the popular will. It is my earnest wish that the holding of the referendum will be conducted in an orderly and peaceful manner. Generally, throughout our history, administrative regions have been created to bring governance closer to the people and accelerate socio-economic development. Hopefully, the creation of these new regions will serve the same purposes.
Our Chief Justice of Kufu has been petitioned to expedite investigations into impeachable allegations made against Chairperson of the Electoral Commission, Charlotte Osei, and her 2 deputies. Civil Society Group Center for National Affairs, CNA, presented a petition to a CJ on Monday after a news conference in Accra, urging Madam Kufu to provide some assurances about when finality will be brought to the allegations. Raymond Aqua joins me in the studio with excerpts of the petition. So what are the details of this petition, Ray?
So first and foremost, the Center for National Affairs is saying that since 19th of July 2017, we have a petition that's before the Chief Justice, which was referred to her by the President, determining the fate of the people who are the most important at the Electoral Commission. And they're also mindful that there are 3 very important events, if they include a referendum on the District Assembly elections, which we are told is going to happen in 2021. But 2 other important events are supposed to happen next year, 2019, and 2020, which is the main election. They fear the current pace at which the petition is being dealt with. We might not have the Electoral Commission put together properly to do the things that they have to do before they go into the election. So they are begging the Chief Justice and falling on Article 2963, which gives them the power to exercise some discretion, which will be supervised by the highest authority, the Chief Justice, in this matter, so that it is fast-paced and we can get to a conclusion on the matter early enough. Then we know what happens to those who occupy the position. Then the Electoral Commission can get to its work and do it properly. They are also referencing other laws which dictates that all the other parties in this case have done their job, except that of the Chief Justice, which is to come to a speedy trial on this matter. Right. They believe that to make this process complete, if the Chief Justice does not act early enough, whichever way it will go, it will be injurious to our national dignity, to the democracy we are practicing, and the future of the elections we are going to have in 2020. They also are giving some examples as to what's likely to happen in this case. They actually insist that some of the things that we are supposed to do require a lot of planning and background work. The Electoral Commission at the apex level has to recommend, and without them, the 3 most important people, the Commission cannot do any proper work. They even compare it to the election petition of 2012. Said that took 9 months. This has exceeded 9 months, from July 2017.
In a few weeks, it's actually going to be a year.
A year. So they fear that the rate at which it's going, and they have not heard anything. They say the public has not been notified that there is anything close to being concluded in this case. They had the option of going to court. They are not going to court, but they are appealing with the person who chairs all courts in this country to fast-pace the process, because the committee working on it is also under her control, so that as democracy can be safeguarded. And that's what they are really demanding.
It's interesting, though, that the parties, the political parties who are supposed to be the main stakeholders, haven't really said much about all of this.
Some months ago, they hinted that they wanted the issue dealt with. But of course, they also added that their hands are tied, really. They cannot control the judicial processes. But the only difficulty they also express is that the inter-party advisory committee meetings have not been called. So they do not really know what's happening at the Electoral Commission currently. They do not know who to refer their petitions and concerns to, and they do not know that what happens is mostly 2 years to the main election. Sometimes there are revisions to the voters' register and other things will happen. They do not know whether the current register will be the same register that will be used for the next election, or there's going to be some revision of a sort. We are ending that particular second year, which is where the main concern really is coming from. So they are worried, but they have not expressed the kind of views, because they know it's the judiciary. You cannot bamboozle the judiciary to do what you like. They have their pace and action that they want to pursue in this particular case. But there's also other grouping, including the CDD, that came out some time ago, that they also want the current crop to step aside. A new grouping appointed to act in their interim and do the work that they're supposed to do, so that if they are reinstated, they can continue with the work. This is to ensure continuity, which is perhaps the biggest job that the Electoral Commission will have to do. They have even left out the fact that next year, and you just talk about creation of regions, all of these referendums and plebiscites that have to be held across the region will have to be done by the Electoral Commission. As it stands now, It doesn't look like the commission is prepared or has that enough work to do some of these important programs ahead of the national elections.
All right, thank you very much, Raymond Akwa. International says it is disappointed with the slow pace of investigations into police brutality against Joy News' Lateef Idris. The reporter was manhandled by police at the CID headquarters here in Accra during a sitting by sympathizers of the opposition NDC over the arrests of its Deputy General Secretary Koku Anyidoho. 3 clear months on, the police is yet to present its report to management of the company, saying it's been unable to identify the men who brutalized a journalist. On the occasion of International Day Against Torture, Amnesty wants the police to do the needful or risk being cited on the international stage as an institution which metes out ill treatment to innocent citizens.
There's a maxim in law that says delay in justice is denial of justice. I mean, once we are delaying the justice for Lateef, it's a denial of justice for him. So we are encouraging the police to please give us a report. We are monitoring. We are not letting it go. We are encouraging Lateef also not to let it go. We are monitoring and making sure that this happens. At the end of the year, we are likely to cover it in our report, which may appear on the international scene, which would require that Ghana responds. And therefore, it's important that Ghana does something about it so that when it comes out, it doesn't become a disgrace to us in our country on our human rights records. Journalists have the freedom to express themselves, and when they attend such events, they have badges, and we expect that the police respect them and give them the due diligence and respect them to cover the news for us as people to also get information. So we are calling on the police system to ensure that they deliver justice as soon as possible.
On the raging controversy over the imminent deportation of 7,000 Ghanaians in detention camps in the U.S., Amnesty International wants government to fast-track processes for the issuance of the required travel documents for the stranded Ghanaians to avoid abuses.
The government has started some steps towards addressing the issue. We are aware that the Foreign Affairs, there was a meeting by the Parliamentary Committee on Foreign Affairs with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and some steps have been taken, some releases have been made, and we hope that we can trust the process. And as they go through this process, we hope that we'll get our brothers back if they are found to be people that are related to us and they have to be brought back. If the legal process are gone through and they find them to be people who have been deported, then they should do it for them.
The international organization also wants corporal punishment eliminated from the education system as it amounts to torture.
We know of teachers using canes on students in schools. That is a form of torture that we think that it's not right. Corporal punishment is not the way to go for our country. It is torture. It is not something that encourages learning in our schools. So we are encouraging the teachers to use the best forms that are prescribed in their blue book, and encourage them that they should use all the ways that will help the children to grow better than just using canes on them in school. And parents should also use best methods. They should avoid using canes. We've heard in news where people have poured oil on their children or use irons to burn their children. We are encouraging everybody in Ghana to use the best form, which is talk to people, get the information, report somebody if you think the person has done something wrong to the authorities to handle, better than use your own pain and inflicting pain on people to get what you want.
The Nandom District Chief Executive says he is worried about the attitude of some chiefs in the district, which is affecting revenue generation. Uncle Selenan Thaddeus Akum believes these chiefs benefit from the Assembly's resources and should not be part of the illegal acts. Thaddeus Akum made the statement at a Durbar of chiefs and queen mothers at Nandom. Rafiq Salam has the rest of the story.
Authorities and residents of Nandom over the years argued about which part of the town should be prioritized for developmental projects. The district, carved out of the Laura district 6 years ago, though deprived, has a high literacy rate. In November 2017, a 16-year non-political district development forum was launched aimed at brainstorming on how to speed up development in the area devoid of politics. The purpose of the latest engagement was to deepen the relationship with chiefs and queen mothers in the Nandom traditional area and also seek their views on the pace of the district development to promote social accountability and deepen the local governance system. chiefs, queen mothers, assembly members, heads of government agencies were present at the Durbar. District Chief Executive Ansolnan Tedious Akon said the engagement, arguable first of its kind in the Nandom district, will be a quarterly affair. He catalogued litany of successes chalked by the Assembly and its quest to bring development to the people, including the 91% open defecation-free coverage attained by the district.
The Assembly has constructed a 6-seater ADRP toilet at Ufa Regional School, and another one is due for completion at Go Primary School. Rehabilitation of agri-quarters at Selron ongoing, and one number semi-detached quarters at Patal also ongoing, and also we have succeeded in finishing our new district assembly office at Dambo.
However, the district chief executive expressed worry over the attitude of some chiefs who are preventing revenue collectors in their areas.
Our collections have not been impressive. I wish to humbly appeal to you to support us to generate more revenue for our development. And generally, we want to create more development for our people. I am sorry to however disclose to you that there are some reports of some of our revered chiefs that have had projects completed for them in their areas from the assembly resources, but are currently preventing our collectors from collecting revenue in their traditional areas. This development is against the law, and therefore we respectfully appeal to those involved to avoid tendencies.
Reporting for Joy News, Rafiq Salam, Nandom.
And in the headlines, Parliament's Privileges Committee, after pre-hearing session on Tuesday, has set July 3 for the public hearing into claims that Asin Central MP Kennedy Agyapong insulted the House. Asin Central MP is meanwhile insisting he's done no wrong. Telecommunication companies finally allow a connection into their system by Kelny GVG, the company contracted by government to verify their revenues. In business, 1 month after telecoms giant MTN Ghana launched its IPO on the Ghana Stock Exchange, Vodafone Ghana has set conditions for a possible listing on the bourse.